It was the early 90s, and as a wide-eyed young man with a questionable taste in haircuts, I started at photo school in Pretoria, South Africa. I learned a great deal in those 3 years there that has helped my photographic career, but there was one thing that I didn't learn, and it's taken me those 10,350 days since I first stepped foot into those darkrooms to discover this vital skill that I wish I'd known about back then. It's such a simple skill, and I believe, in fact, I know every photographer, irrespective of their ability, can put this into practice with their own photography. And they're going to avoid the mistake that I made for most of those 10,350 days. It's a mistake that I wish I could undo. How's it? The reason this video is one of the most important on this channel so far is that I'm going to share with you a simple truth about photography. Now, before you discover this truth, it's going to hold you back. However, as soon as you understand it, you're going to be able to unleash your full photographic potential. I'd like you to think back to when you first picked up a camera. Now, if, like me, it was a film camera with possibly only the most basic of functions, maybe some form of auto exposure, then you remember the joy of having someone help you load the film, the basics of how to focus and how to trip the shutter. And then, if you used film, there was that long, anxious wait while the film was developed and you got to see the results. Now, like magic, you had captured light and put it onto paper. Now, perhaps the results weren't magic to most people, but to you, they were awesome. Every photographer has enjoyed those first moments when the alchemy of photography connected with them. And it doesn't matter who you are, you create photos because that vital connection has been made. It reached out and it touched something inside you. All of us start photography at different times in our lives, and I hope this is starting to give you an idea about what this truth is that holds so many of us back in our photography. In those early days, it was easy for you to make progress. You knew so little that any improvement felt like a giant leap forward. In every new roll of film, every set of exposures, there, plain to see, were the rewards of your efforts. The goal of your improvement may have been as simple to take a picture of the family dog that mum and dad would be happy to frame and put up onto the wall. Now, that may be a suitable goal for an 8-year-old, but things get a little bit more muddled if you pick up a camera seriously for the first time as an adult. What goals would be suitable for you? How would you measure your improvement in a way that felt grown up? Well, most of us tend to turn to our peers, and of course that's the very problem. All those people in the camera clubs, the online groups, the channels, even the channels like this, they all have a common interest of photography. But for the majority, they aren't really your peers. Measuring yourself against them is a recipe for unhappiness. Most people are familiar with the saying, happiness is the thief of joy, or comparison is the thief of joy, more accurately. Now, what does that mean? Well, generally when we compare ourselves, or in this case, our photography, we tend to do it from a place of weakness. You look at other photographers' images, you tend to lump them all together, at least those photographs that you like, and you consider this to be those photographers at their best, whatever that may be. And then, of course, you compare your own photography to those two. This creates a giant chasm between that great work that you think that you're seeing in your own, or to be honest, more accurately, it creates a chasm of what you think they're achieving and what you think you're capable of. You never fully appreciate that your photography is a work in progress and that you might be comparing your start with someone else's middle. Now, I believe that great photographers look at images by those who have come before them and their contemporaries, and they draw inspiration. They don't explore comparisons. Of course, it's human nature to compare ourselves to others, but we can't let this comparison of our photography boil down into this resentment and jealousy. At the root of so many of those toxic comments we've all seen in photography discussions, they come from this place of jealousy. Those people who see photography as a competition, a race to be won. I did too. For the longest time, my photography was about trying to be the best of everyone who I knew. Now, before this simple truth was revealed to me, and God, when I say it like that, it doesn't sound like some sort of weird infomercial. Buy this simple truth today and get this bottle of increased awareness spray absolutely free. Call now. Anyway, before I changed my mindset, I was jealous and I resented anyone whom I assumed was doing better than me photographically. And of course, doing better is such a relative term. I thought I'd stagnated as a photographer, and that everyone was improving but me. The person who picked up a camera last week, oh, they're better than me. The big wins, the giant leaps forward that I'd experienced as a child in my photography were long gone. I was so focused on other people that I almost missed the more subtle signs of improvement within my own images. This was the big mistake for me. I'd spent so much of my time worrying about other people. I hadn't been improving my own photography at my own pace for my own benefit and to achieve my own personal goals. I'd been consumed with measuring myself against others. Being confident with your technical ability in photography, it is important, but the thing that separates the photographers who simply create images and the ones whose photographs stick in your mind for years afterwards is this ability to speak visually with their photographs. I'd love to help you develop this side of your photography. So I put together a playlist of some videos which will put you on the right track with discovering the skill that everyone is capable of learning. It'll be up on the screen at the end of this video. Go and check it out. Comparison, or more accurately, comparison that had devolved into jealousy was holding me back. Hidden and silent, it had stopped me from seeing the progress in my own work and had made me see only the faults. It had highlighted other successes and diminished my own. And maybe that sounds familiar to a lot of you. Now, at this point in most stories, there's a flash of light, an explosion, or some other sort of grand reveal. For me, it wasn't quite like that. Now, slowly and imperceptibly, this jealousy had started to fade. Now, perhaps it was my interest in hippie-ish things like mindfulness or just trying to be grateful for what I had. Or maybe it was me growing up and being the other side of 40, who knows? What I do know is that when the fog cleared, my photography became so much freer. Of course, the big danger is thinking that this will dissipate by itself. And this is why I want to share with you this video, because I'm sure, in fact, I know that a lot of people are not this fortunate to come to this realization of themselves, and they must languish for years under a falsehood that their photography is not improving. And I want to tell everybody today that that's not the case, and you can get out of this hole. As my photography had improved, I'd fallen into this trap of assuming that the fast growth would go on forever. The disappointment when it didn't continue its rocket-like trajectory, it upset me. I struggled for years thinking that this was as far as I was going to go on my photographic journey, that others were leaping ahead, that they were so much more better than I was. That person who was born 15 years after me in the 90s, who now has pictures up in the National Gallery, how were they better than I was? It wasn't fair. I didn't feel like it was fair. And that's what stopped me from growing, that I was consumed with other people. My biggest wish for you is to not fall into this trap, or if you have fallen into, know that it's not unique and that all you need is a little boost, just to help you get out of this hole. All of us started our photography at different times. Some are on the plains and some are on the foothills, and a few are near their own personal summits. Now, these photographers are not your competitors. There is no grand prize. Take some of your images from 10 years ago, from 5 years ago, from last week. You're going to see the improvements you've made, even if you don't feel like you've improved. Of course, the irony is that the more you improve, the less dramatic that improvement is. Like a sculpture, the start is done with a hammer, quickly, obviously knocking lumps of marble everywhere. But the finishing touches, the result of hours of polishing away tiny, tiny, tiny imperfections. I spent those 10,350 days polishing away and chipping to reveal inside of me what I should have known from the very start. That vital skill that you and every other photographer needs to know is to keep perspective. It's that simple. Remember that to someone else, you may be one of the most accomplished photographers that they know. But you don't think that, but it's true. Now, great photographers don't try to compete with one another. They understand that everybody is going at their own pace and that everybody's goals and achievements are their own. and they celebrate those achievements equally. They know that this is an art form that we all enjoy as a lifelong love, and that the only way to measure ourselves is against ourselves. Earlier I mentioned that playlist to help you explore how to create more personal photography that has meaning. Well, I've put that up on the screen for you now. Just click over there and you'll be taken to the next video. If you found this video helpful, there is a link in the description box below where you can support the channel if you'd like. Thanks ever so much for your time and for joining me here today.